I watched a man's life get demolished earlier this year by a sexual decision that he made. There's something really, really, really important you need to think about if you're going to have sex with people. And I'm not immune to this either. I've made mistakes in the past, and I'm very grateful that my mistakes did not result in a different reality. Basically, what happened with this guy earlier this year is he had sex with a woman. He started to get into a relationship with her, and then he ejaculated inside her. Pretty early on in their relationship, she got pregnant. She had the baby, and she didn't want to have the baby with him. The chemistry wasn't there. It was just a couple-month thing, and he felt destroyed by this. He wanted to be in a relationship with her. He wanted to raise this child with her. And no, meanwhile, she's like already forming a relationship with another guy and spent a lot of the pregnancy building this relationship with this other guy. And before you start to demonize this woman, I also want to put responsibility back on this guy. Like, he chose to have sex with this woman. He chose to ejaculate inside her within the first few months of knowing each other without having any sort of idea of what the future would hold. Like, the first few months is not nearly enough time to determine if you want to have children with somebody. Even the first year, you're in that new relationship energy. You're basically on drugs with this person, right? And your body wants to procreate, but we're not living in the survivalist era anymore. Like, you don't need to procreate every time you have sex. And so the bigger issue here is I really want you to understand the power of your seed, the power of your semen. You can create new life with this. And birth control fails sometimes. The pill fails. Condoms fail often. People get pregnant. And a lot of people will say, yeah, sure, I'll get an abortion if I get pregnant. But then when they actually get pregnant, something changes internally, and the desire to abort a child is often less than it was beforehand. And even if they want to have the child, like, maybe they're not going to want to do it with you. And so if you're not able to have a conversation with somebody about what would happen if you got pregnant with them, you probably shouldn't be having sex with them. I'm going to go ahead and say that you should not have sex with them, because if they're not mature enough to have that conversation, how the fuck do you think you're going to handle it if pregnancy actually happens? Like, it's going to ruin your fucking life. For a little while, yes, you can recover, but if you have a child at 22, your life is different for the rest of your life. It just is. All of a sudden, you have to support another being, and a huge amount of your resources are going to go towards this thing, versus taking the next 8 years and really building yourself up to be able to more intentionally have a child, if having a child is something you want to do at all. So just consider that. Be very intentional with who you have sex with. And a side note, personal note of a story of mine that was actually kind of traumatic for me. I hooked up with this very, very attractive younger woman 7 or 8 years ago for a few months. We sex dated, whatever you want to call it. And we had all the conversations, right? We had all the conversations about sex, about not desire for pregnancy. I was hyper vigilant about condom use and not ejaculating inside this person. I wouldn't even have sex with her without a condom. One night, she wanted me to come on her. And so I did. And I was very far away from her vagina, ejaculated on her chest. She was loving it, rubbing it all on herself. And then in the heat of the moment, with my ejaculate on her fingers and hands, she like rubbed down and like started rubbing her pussy and stuck her fingers inside her vagina with my semen on it. And I like watched in slow motion while it happened, like it just like fucked with my brain. I almost said something, but I didn't say anything. And I froze, and then all of a sudden her fingers were inside herself and she was around ovulation. And I was like, fuck, do you see what you just did? And she's like, what? I'm like, you just put my semen inside your vagina. And she was like, oh shit, I did, didn't I? And yeah, yes, you did that in the heat of the moment. Fast forward a little bit. And so I asked her then, I'm like, hey, I really want you to get the Plan B pill because I didn't consent to that. I didn't ask you to do that. And then she got defensive and she said things like, well, it's my body. I'm not going to get a Plan B pill if I don't want to. And I'm like, ooh, very mad, very fucking angry at that. And long story short, thankfully, she did get the Plan B pill. I took her there. I paid for it and everything. Did not ever have sex or do anything sexual with her again. And it occurred to me, wow, like even with this person, if you ejaculate on somebody and they like get lost in the moment, they could still somehow like take your semen and put it inside them. Like, and that's almost a neurotic way to think about it, but that shit actually happened to me, you know? And it kind of scarred me for a while. And yeah, it just, brothers, your seed is so fucking powerful, and you really, really, really need to be intentional with who you share it with. That's the message for this video. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know in a comment below. I will answer them and I'll get back to you. And check out one of these two videos for where to go next. They will both help you on your journey. Peace.